I would actually say in the short term trend, we've seen lower lows. So pretty much this month in April, we've seen kind of these bouncing lows go lower, right? One, two, three, four of them. But if we zoom out, and this is maybe the more macro argument, is if we look at multiple months, maybe all of this year, we actually see our lows coming up. And if we zoom out even more to last year, we see that our lows have pretty much only come up. This is a trade that's hoping to capture some of that upside action, even though it really doesn't feel like there's upside action going on.
Yes. Welcome back, everybody, to Altcoin Daily. My name's Austin, joined by friend of the channel and returning guest, TA expert Tom Crown of the Tom Crown YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, brother. Great to be on again.
Yes, sir. And for the audience at home, today is all about Bitcoin. Actually, this whole interview I literally just saw you on Twitter post that you have added onto your long for Bitcoin. And I'm not a trader, but to me, that seems sort of insane just because, I don't know, sentiment seems totally bearish right now. So I want to talk about that, Tom. But first, real quick, I want to thank sponsor of the channel, FTX. Have you heard of FTX?
I have, of course.
One of the most respected crypto exchanges. There's a link down below for the FTX app, 85% cheaper than competitors, as well as, special promo code for the Altcoin Daily audience. Use promo code Altcoin Daily, special offer. Anyway, Tom, let's get into it. You entered along. Give me your thoughts on Bitcoin.
Of course, man. So you said it yourself, sentiment is so low. Actually, I think I might've told you about this, but yesterday I went through YouTube and Social Blade. I was looking at other YouTube creators and crypto, and I saw the whole space has almost no growth for the last 2 months. Some channels had some subscribers, but those numbers are really down from last year. I know personally on my channel, and don't forget to subscribe to me, guys. I have seen very little growth this month, and that seems to be across the board. So sentiment, and you were streaming actually before me, right? 2017, 18.
2018 started the channel, very beginning.
Sentiment then was very low, but I don't remember it being this low. It's kind of wild. I was streaming in 2019 and 20, and it was definitely slow, but we're talking no subscriber growth for a month. And even at the slowest times last year, or I guess 2 years ago, we still had some movement in the space. So sentiment might be at its lowest levels ever. That would be my claim. So to go long here, absolutely is a little crazy, but sometimes you have to be a little crazy to get the good opportunities. I do have some technicals that I'll share with you guys to back this up, or at least the way I see it. Not financial advice, guys, of course. Do your own research, but I'm more than happy to share kind of what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing and the trade I'm currently in.
Please share the screen. And again, to reiterate that to the audience, I would never make a trade based on somebody else's TA. TA is often very personal, so just do your own research. But I still like to keep in check with the traders out there and see what you're doing.
Good advice. So let me pop this up. Though the trade that I'm in is a long on Bitcoin, there's some other things we want to look at here. So I have 3 charts for you guys today. I'm going to try to keep it simple. Right now, I have the weekly chart for the total crypto market cap pulled up. This isn't just Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin and Ethereum and ADA and apes, whatever, everything combined into one. And so this chart actually looks a little bit different than Bitcoin's. And because it represents the space as a whole, it can be a good indicator for Bitcoin and for any other given coins. So what the difference is here is we see the lows on the total value of the crypto market space coming up. This is a pretty nice structure we have built here. We had a much higher and clearer high in November for the total market cap than we did, say, on just Bitcoin. And so what I'm starting to see here is really an ascending kind of pattern. While this is in play, we're going to expect to see upside. It might not be very quick or feel good. It could be a very slow grinding upside. But we're going to look for this pattern, and basically we're going to use it to invalidate a trade that we might make. Without getting too technical, the total crypto market cap did stop and find support at a very important level, and that would be the 618 retrace of its swing low to swing high. I won't get too into that, but as long as it's chilling here with this low end, I think that the total market cap is actually looking bullish despite kind of maybe what it feels. So there's one other factor going on that I think explains some of this misery we've seen in the space, and that's definitely the dollar. The dollar has been on a rampage, honestly, since 2021. We've seen it moving up slowly throughout pretty much all of last year, and now it's really taken off into 2022. It traded up to 103. And for those of you who don't know what this is, the dollar, or the Dixie, is not exactly how strong the dollar is, but it's how strong the dollar is when you compare it to a basket of 5 major currencies. So that includes yen, I believe the yuan, euro. And if you look at those currencies right now, they are nosediving. The euro is looking miserable. It looks like a crazy altcoin, actually. And so the dollar is really seeing growth based on those other currencies doing poorly. And actually, just yesterday and today, the dollar broke its March 2020 high of 103. So that puts this at about, I think, a 5-year high. Yeah, 5-year high. It's pretty impressive. If it pushes up any higher, it will actually go to like a 20-year high. And so the reason this is important is as the dollar becomes stronger, it's able to purchase more assets, so more Bitcoin in this example. And so that puts a downward pressure on the price of Bitcoin. And so the reason this is important to the trade is I'm betting that the dollar is likely topped out here or very close. So I'm expecting that to come back down, to reject kind of from this area that we've seen it in the last 8 years mess around in. I'm expecting it to come back down. And if we look back at the history of Bitcoin, we see that the highs and lows of the dollar correlate really well with the highs and lows of Bitcoin. We can see it's 2016 down to 2018. This was pretty much the parabolic run of Bitcoin as the dollar fell from the high. And that's what I'm looking for again here. So I'm not sure if this trade is going to catch that whole move, but I'm using kind of these other charts to build a case for this position I'm in. And so finally, we'll get to the Bitcoin chart.
Question. Can I give you,
sure.
Can I give you a question on that other chart?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so you're essentially saying because the dollar has so much more purchasing power, people are going to use that to go into other assets. Some Bitcoin is the speculation.
Absolutely. And there's also kind of a fundamental relationship between the two. So if we say, an apple has a value, right? That value is we eat it or whatever you're going to do with the apple, make a flute out of it. I don't know. It has some value. And so that apple is traded with dollars. And so if the dollar becomes stronger, it can purchase more apple per dollar, if that makes sense. So the dollar hasn't really changed in value. It's still, you just eat it or whatever you're going to do with it. But the dollar can now buy more apples per dollar. So the cost of that apple actually goes down when measured in dollars. Does that make sense?
100%. Very interesting.
And so the same is true in reverse. If the dollar weakens, it can now buy less apples with each dollar. And so the price in dollars for apples goes up. And Bitcoin, I'm not going to say is completely tethered to this relationship, but it does have historical precedent where it does have this relationship. And if you think about it, Bitcoin mostly traded in dollars, so that can make some sense. Should we move on to the BTC chart?
Let's do it. So the people want to hear what's happening with Bitcoin. Want.
So I'm going to try to keep this simple too. I'll show you my trade here in just a minute.
So this is what you saw to be like, hey, I'm going into a long, it looks good to me.
Absolutely. This is all it takes sometimes. So back here in February, these are the weekly candles. So each candle here represents a week. We traded in this range and really were caged into this range for weeks. And that range is about 35,000 to 37,000. As we slowly sold off in the last few weeks, we saw kind of that selling pressure slow down a little bit. It lost a little bit of its momentum. And in this week, we actually saw price trade all the way down to that 37.7 mark. I saw somewhat of a bounce. And to me, that was the making for a good trade here. What I like about it is we have these other factors in play, but it's kind of a cut and dry trade. So if I see price trade down below 37.7, I'm not really confident in this trade anymore. And I'm likely going to look to stop it out. I looked originally to go long at 38.5. and luckily it dumped down into there and I got filled. And I'm really looking to ride this trade up to the 45,000 level. I'm going to slowly take profit on the way up. I have those layered out. I can show you guys if you'd like. But with the condition of the dollar, I'm really looking forward to do a U-turn here, even if it doesn't crash down, just to show a little bit of weakness. And I think that's going to be a catalyst to push Bitcoin's price up.
So you're saying you longed it at around high 38s, maybe 39. You plan to ride it all the way up if it gets there to 45,500.
Yes, I can show you guys that here. It's maybe a little much to look at if you're not used to exchanges, but it's about a $5,000 long position. I entered in pieces, and so the average price is 38,687. And I actually have lots of take profit targets set. So you can see these are very layered out. I don't know. You see, that's a piece of trading I think a lot of people aren't familiar with or don't want to accept is we don't ever know. It's all a game of probability. So I don't know how high this is going to go. But what I do know is if I layer my orders up like this slowly, I'm going to take some profit on the way up and I'm going to catch a piece of wherever that high ends up. So I have these actually all the way out to about 61,000. I'm not thinking this is going to go that far. I may adjust in the future, but I'm making sure that when it goes up, I'm taking pieces of that and locking away that profit. And I've actually filled, I think, 2 of these already on this position for a very, very small gain of $15, a humble gain. And have my stop loss here, 37.6. And that lines up with what I was saying down here. If we see this low break, I'm no longer confident in this position and I'm going to look to jump out of it. And so far, been pretty good.
Very interesting. And I want to remind the audience, links for Tom Crown, Twitter and YouTube down below. But let me ask you this as sort of a final question, just because I got to get to yoga, doing a little yoga class.
Got to get to yoga.
Take me back to that chart.
Okay.
What you're the
back.
Bitcoin chart, what you're essentially saying is you're expecting sort of a bounce in this broader downward trend, because we have been seeing in the larger timeframes, we have been seeing lower lows. So you're expecting this is a bounce in a much lower trend, or what do you think, I guess, more long-term?
So I would actually say in the short-term trend, we've seen lower lows. So pretty much this month in April, we've seen kind of these bouncing lows go lower, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. But if we zoom out, and this is maybe the more macro argument, is if we look at multiple months, maybe all of this year, we actually see our lows coming up. And if we zoom out even more to last year, we see that our lows have pretty much only come up. This is a trade that's hoping to capture some of that upside action, even though it really doesn't feel like there's upside action going on. There is, it's just very slow and unsatisfying. Back here last year in May, June, July, sentiment was very low, not as low as it was now, but going long in July was a crazy thought, right? And I kind of got that same sentiment vibe going into this trade of, I think someone called me delusional, actually, when I said I was going to do it. And I said, you know what, man, some of my best trades have been called delusional. And so that actually builds my confidence here.
Love it. Let's flip the screen, take it back on us.
Sure.
Tom, I really appreciate the, last minute, come on the channel, explain to me your long. Appreciate you. Final thoughts for the Altcoin Daily audience.
Guys, if you've made it this far, you've made it through most of the crap. It doesn't get much more boring than this. And so this is the test of crypto. It's not always exciting. Actually, it's exciting for a very brief period of time, and then it's followed usually by these really boring or painful times. And if you've made it this far, you should pat yourself on the back. I think we're closer to the end of this crazy period than we are to the beginning. So keep with it.